What's up, Flannelverse? We are here for Monday Night Football of Week 17. This is something I think a lot of us have been anticipating for months at this point. I mean, we've been drafting best ball since January of this year, and kind of looking forward to Monday Night Football as the finale of best ball.
But you've been doing what? You started drafting in January?
Oh, big time. Started drafting. I don't think I drafted a ton in January, but I definitely did some. They do pre-draft best ball contests. So before the rookie draft, you can like draft the rookie players, not knowing where they're going to be, not knowing bye weeks or anything like that. I did some of that. It wasn't much of my volume, but yeah, I did start then. So we've been anticipating this for a long time. For many of those months, we did have the schedule, Falcons and Rams being the Monday Night Football game that we've been targeting. Adam, I pulled up our best ball results here. Could be Travis encouraged us to tilt here. It says it's tilt spates for best ball. So let's just do some quick tilting. I know you were tilting early on. I mean, we were all tilting by Saturday night because Derrick Henry had that huge game and we didn't have him. But you were tilting a little bit earlier than that because in that earlier Saturday game, you had CJ Stroud, and in the first quarter, he threw 2 touchdowns, one of them to Jaden Higgins, who you didn't have, the second one to Jalen Noel. So it's looking like you might actually be set up for a big week if he can continue that. And then CJ Stroud did not continue that. What else do you want to tilt?
Yeah, I mean, the primetime games were just all kind of like really tilting for me because I had Aaron Jones score like 13 points in the first half on Thursday and then do like nothing else. Jared Goff was my other quarterback. And obviously, like, I didn't want to have any, I didn't want CJ Stroud to matter. So yeah. Watching the Jared Goff game was terrible. And then, yeah, the CJ Stroud, Jalen Noel, like that was really exciting. And then nothing else happened there. So I don't know. It was like, it was a weird week for me where like I assumed that Puka's going to go off tonight. I'm going to end up with basically like a min cash. But on the one hand, like Chase Brown and Charbonnet having monster games did move me to where like at least maybe I'll make a little bit more than min cash. Yeah. But then on the other hand, like that's almost more tilting because I look at the team and it's like if you told me coming into the week that I was going to get 60 points from Charbonnet and Brown,
right?
Like I assume that I have some sort of not like a $2 million sweat, but like some sort of like 5-figure sweat probably at least going into tonight. But like my first round pick isn't even in my starting lineup. My second, or I guess Chase Brown was probably my second or third, but like ASB and JSN are barely in my lineup. So it's just like I got basically no help from anybody other than like Charbonnet and Brown.
Yeah, no, that
and
is...
obviously Olave, but he's on half the teams.
Yeah, right. He's on 42%. Yeah, that is pretty. I mean, Aaron Jones got hurt also for a little while, so like, he came back in and did a little bit more for you, but that obviously hurt his number a little bit. You could continue to move up. I mean, with how Kyle Pitts is playing lately, he's pretty likely to supplant Bretton Strange as your tight end. So you probably do gain some points here at the very least. But then
I don't think it'll do much because he's so popular. And then also like from a pay jump standpoint, I think he would need like 17 points just for me to get to the next pay jump. And that's if like nobody else moved from Puka or Pitts or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't really think he matters.
I'm also very tilted. Let's see if I can find my lineup. It should be highlighted, right? There it is. This is so I had 2 lineups in the final, humble brag. One of them kind of never really had a chance, but I was really excited about this lineup coming in. And then after the Derrick Henry game, I kind of thought I'm probably dead for any real money, but like I still sort of feel like I could have really done something with this lineup if a few different things had gone just like a little bit differently. AJ Brown had a catch or a pass to him like at the 1 yard line that would have been a touchdown I think would have been a touchdown. It was like a dart from Jalen Hurts that he like almost caught, but the defender like grabbed his arm. So he was like trying to one arm grab it. They didn't call pass interference and he didn't even really complain, but it was like the announcer like, oh yeah, it looks like that was like pretty clear pass interference. And I'm like, that it would have been a 13-point play for me because it would have put him over the 100-yard bonus plus a touchdown and the catch and all that. So it's like so tilting for me. And like that actually, like I think with that AJ Brown, just that 13 more points puts me at 166 with I have Puka and Bijan going later, puts me in like a realistic spot to like do some real damage in this tournament. Like again, probably not a $2 million sweat, but like maybe hundreds of thousands, like at least a potential for hundreds of thousands if that happens. Also had,
especially with how your team's set up, because like Bijan's going to pass Henderson pretty quickly. Puka's going to pass Addison pretty quickly.
Yeah. So like it would have been like huge for me if that happened. And then on top of that had Harold Fannin scores 11 fantasy points immediately in the first quarter and then hurts himself on the touchdown grab. So that like I probably would have beat out Hunter Henry. I mean, like, no guarantees, but like that's probably like some more fantasy points I would have had at tight end. Like things I can't really complain because I got a ton out of Drake May, I got a ton out of Luther Burden, Stephon Diggs, all that. But then it just a few different things go a little bit different. And then of course the Patriots just like by the midway through the third quarter, the game was out of reach and they kind of stopped really playing hard and then benched their starters. So like just like a few little things, and I feel like I could be in a sweat for like really big money. I think as it is, like I think the real, like if everybody hits their projection, I think I get to the top 100, which would be $10,000, which again, like you said, going into the week, if you had told me you're going to win $10,000, I'd be like, I'll take that. Like top 100 is pretty good. I mean, maybe not. I wouldn't take it because I would want the shot of the big money, but like that's like a pretty good outcome. But just like seeing how well Luther Burden did and seeing how well some of these things did, it's like, man, this could have been a huge sweat for me. And now it's like, I think best case scenario is probably like 20,000 if like Bijan gets 40. Like, I don't know. So it's kind of tilting.
I was thinking about it last night, like what the discourse this offseason is going to be as far as, people overreacting to like how you win or whatever. And like on the one hand, obviously there's Derrick Henry where I don't know, are we going to like draft old running backs next year, like early? But the part that I was actually kind of thinking about is like, you're going to have, you had the big week from Bill, and then you had the big week from Burden. And it was, Chris Rodriguez got sick and missed the game. Zacchaeus got sick and missed the game. Yeah, so it's true. like obviously like, those guys had roles and like, it's not crazy that they had big games, but like, I fully expect that you're going to get some sort of, like overreaction to like Krosky Merritt and Burden when it's just like, you had somebody get the flu and that's why they
push up the rookies even more than we've already pushed them.
Right.
Yeah. I know people want to talk about this game and we will be getting started very quick. Bro gets 5 touchdowns from May and wanted more. I mean, like Purdy put up more than Drake May, and it was just because the game got out of hand. Like he would have put up more fantasy points.
That was the other thing that I think is going to be really interesting from like a discourse standpoint is like, obviously you had the Bears game where like everything went nuts, but I mean, excluding like, I mean, I guess Jennings did have the touchdown, but like excluding DJ Moore and kind of Jennings, like you had that like actual game stack do well, but like Drake May, Stephon Diggs, obviously very good plays that you would want. Other team did nothing. Derrick Henry, obviously fantastic. Outside of Malik Willis, other team did nothing. So like, what's the game stacking conversation for week 17 going to be?
Yeah. I also like this question. I know some of you want to talk about DFS. We will start DFS in a few minutes here, but just wanted to, this is week 17. This is the final. We're very excited. Do you have any victory laps on player takes or fades or just overall strategy for the season that you think you might change going into next year? I've been thinking about this a lot. Curious if you have any.
I think I'll draft 3 quarterbacks more often next year. I think I'll probably, I do think I was like, I still think that in general, like best ball people are on the extreme end in one direction with how they treat rookies. I do think I was a little too far the other way, like as far as just overvaluing mid-round picks, and probably should have taken some more flyers on, like your Luther Burden type guys. Obviously that's just a relevant example right now, but guys like that. So I think that's something where I don't think that I'll just be, slamming rookies starting in round 6 next year or anything, but I do think that I probably undervalued them a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm very much a best ball bro. I was drafting a ton of rookies, and I probably am too far on the other end of the spectrum where it's like, like it's good to have these rookies on some teams, but like I have so many teams where I have 6 rookies, and it's like I just like assumed that like Jarquez Hunter was going to be something, or Taj Brooks was going to be something, like these late round running backs who ended up being nothing. I think like I go back and forth on, I think I probably need to value early round running backs more than I do. And I think I need to stop trying to think I can predict injuries, because I think like this year is like part of the reason I didn't draft a ton of Christian McCaffrey is because like he's probably going to get hurt. Like it's under 50% that he's going to be there in the playoff week. Same thing with Derrick Henry. Like a lot of these running backs, I'm just like, running backs get hurt all the time. They're probably not going to be available later in the year. So like and then the highest drafted running back for me was like, but the rookie running backs, like they're young, they're healthy. Omari Hampton was like my highest drafted early round running back. And then and Bucky Irving, like the young guys where I'm like, they're probably not going to get hurt. So I'll draft a lot of the young guys in good situations. And then they of course got hurt. So I go back and forth on like, maybe I'll become more of an early round running back. Like maybe people will finally convince me you should draft running backs early. But then ultimately, like, a lot of my best teams are like, you had one early running back and star receivers, which is kind of like kind of worked out. So I don't know. I don't
That's
know
my
what to
favorite
expect.
build in general.
Yeah.
I do think I did move more running back early on underdog this year anyway. And I'll probably move that way a little bit more on DraftKings. Like I kind of go back and forth because like with the offensive environment now, you're like running backs are more valuable. But then at the same time, having to keep in mind that like, yeah, it's worked really well the last couple of years, but we really haven't had like big running back injuries either of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, yeah, I do think running backs are undervalued given that like the entire offensive environment is different now than when best ball first started and people started like crafting strategies for it.
Right.
But also we have had like a ridiculous string of like really good running back health.
Yeah, it has been kind of an outlier couple of years, and obviously zero RB works a lot better if you get a few like big injuries and some of the backups come in. So I'm not going to completely abandon what I have been doing, but I'm going to give more thought to probably draft a bit more of the early running backs than I have been. Happy Sam Sherman wins BBM 6 day for those who celebrate. I love Sam. Hope he does not win BBM 6 because it would mean that my guys did poorly today.
Yeah, I think I saw him tweet that like he's fading like 22 from Puka and like 18 from Pitts or something.
Yeah, which I mean, he could win, and I could still do pretty well because it's full PPR. You can get the 100-yard bonus stuff that doesn't matter on underdog. So I'm not necessarily fully on the other side of things as Sam, but obviously I just really care about my teams. So
I would obviously like to be sweating $2 million right now, but like coming into the week, all I could think about was how miserable this 24-hour period would be if you were in Sam's position. Where like it would be bad enough if it's like, oh, I'm fading 35 from Puka, but like, oh, I was hating last week where I was fading Michael Pittman hitting his median projection just to get into the DraftKings finals and guarantee myself $1,000.
Yeah,
like that cannot be a fun sweat, especially because there's no way to hedge out of it. You just have a $2 million sweat.
Yeah, I mean, you could what bet Puka's overs, like you can sort of hedge, right?
You can't bet $1 million on.
Well, yeah, no, you can't fully hedge out of it. Yeah, that's true. Good luck to Sam. Very, very, very cool run out for him with Henry and Ramondre Stevenson and a lot of players hitting who needed.
Like I assume I would just be hitting up every high stakes DFS player I know trying to sell parts of my team.
I thought about trying to like swap equity with people in this, which I've never done. Or I've done very little swapping of equity, and I thought about doing that in the DK finals. Did not do it.
I thought about asking you if you wanted to, and then I realized you had 2 teams, and I was like, it becomes such a pain in the ass to like.
Yeah, I also thought about asking. I was gonna like suggest like I have 2 teams. You can take like whatever percentage you want of each of them, and like it's just like if you get 6 figures or something. But ultimately, just like whatever, we'll just let it roll.
But yeah, like if I was sitting in first right now, like I would probably just be hitting up like every rich person I know.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right. All we care about right now, all we're thinking about is best ball, but we're gonna try to get our heads back into some DFS here. So let's get into a bit of DFS. We're going to start as usual with quarterbacks, then running backs, receivers, tight ends. I've already run the sims. Adam, I think, had just finished updating these when I ran them, so I think that these are updated with the latest. Obviously, everything starts with Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Matthew Stafford, 10,800 projected for 49% flex ownership, 22% captain. Kirk Cousins, 9,000 projected for 31-3. I'm way under the field on Matthew Stafford, just getting to 17% at flex, none at captain. Cousins, I am a bit over the field in the flex, 0.7% at captain. Are you seeing similar with the quarterbacks? Is this how you think you're going to play it?
Yeah, I'm seeing similar too, and I think it's fine. I'm kind of wondering, I haven't looked anywhere else. I'm wondering if the Stafford ownership is maybe a little bit high, but it doesn't really seem it. Like at least at flex, 49% seems reasonable. 22% captain seems like a lot when you have a slate that has, very, very good skill players basically throughout. And you're talking about a quarterback that doesn't run, and also a quarterback that has one wide receiver to throw the ball to, basically. So that is kind of the only thing on Stafford that really stands out to me is the 22% captain ownership seems like a ton. I don't have him at captain right now. I only have 15% at flex. I do think the salary is a little bit high, like relative to Bijan and Puka. Like obviously he's cheaper, but those guys just have clear, obviously the ability to just blow Stafford out of the water from like a range of outcome standpoint. And then, he's more expensive than Kyron. He's more expensive than London. So I think Stafford himself is perfectly fine. I think it's just like an ownership thing for me, why I'm not getting to too much of him. I am getting closer to the field on Cousins. I have 2% at captain, 38% at flex, just a completely different price range on Cousins. Like, clearly you're expecting him to be worse than Stafford. But a couple things he does have working for him are one, he is $1,800 less, which is obviously the big thing. But he does at least have multiple pass catchers that realistically he can complete multiple passes to, not taking anything away from like Terrence Ferguson or Mumfield or whatever, but like clearly it's the Puka show and only the Puka show with the Rams. And with the Falcons, you at least have London, you have Pitts, and then you have, Mooney and whatever else maybe he throws the ball to.
Yeah. I just want to note that Rotogrunner says Stafford at 13% projected captain ownership. They do have him also at about 49% flex, which that seems more realistic to me. I think like 22%, I'd be a little bit surprised to see Stafford there at captain. So maybe I'll adjust that ownership later, but I'm guessing I get a bit more of Stafford, at least some at captain probably, but I don't know that it would actually change all that much if you use their ownership projections instead.
Yeah. I feel like I would definitely like prefer having Stafford at flex, especially if he's relatively popular at captain.
Yeah. As far as the the matchups go, positive matchup for both quarterbacks. Look like they're both in the top, 12 or so in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 weeks. Slightly better matchup for the Atlanta passing game, which kind of surprised me. But both are like not great matchups, not like slightly better than average matchups for the quarterbacks. As far as stacking goes, I would want either of these quarterbacks stacked up regardless of where I have them in the lineup most of the time. If I have them in the captain spot, probably want them to have multiple pass catchers. I believe Stafford has -2 rushing yards on the season, and Cousins has, or -6, and Cousins has like 2 or something like that. Like both are right around net 0 passing yards or rushing yards on the season. So I'm going to want to stack them if I have them in the lineup. Any other notes on running backs? Quarterbacks.
I can see how you got confused when you're talking about Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, exactly. Elite athletes. Okay. All right.
No, Niner gang, I did not enjoy the show at all last night.
I enjoyed the Burden part of it.
Yeah.
And did not enjoy the rest of it. Yeah. That was the only part.
The McCaffrey part. So like I had McCaffrey on my 2 underdog teams in the puppy, but it was just the same thing. It was like, this is not moving me up nearly enough to make up for what it is definitely costing me on DraftKings.
Yeah, it was a fun game for Eagles. I saw Eagles was just like had all of that game stack and moved up quite a bit. But yeah, not so fun for me. Other than the Burden, that was very fun seeing Burden go off. All right, let's move on to running backs, and pretty cut and dried running backs here, I'd say, because we have 2 like sort of split backfields with at least one clear lead dog on the Falcons. We can get into the Ram stuff, but Bijan Robinson, 11,800 projected for 32% flex ownership, 16% captain ownership. I'm getting to 62% flex, 25% captain, having not done anything to the sim. So the sims are loving some Bijan Robinson. Are you seeing the same thing? Do you think you're going to play a lot of Bijan tonight?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he looks really good. I do think the backfield for for both, but like for the Falcons, you've just seen them be so inconsistent. And then now you also have the fact that they aren't playing for anything, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like the first game after they were eliminated, you had maybe Bijan's highest rushing workload of the entire year. He had 90% of their carries in week 15. But then like last week, you had 43% rushing market share for Bijan. You had 43 for Algier. And so like I personally projected it to I projected it like I would a Falcons game, 2 months ago, just to kind of be like 65% give or take Bijan, 30% roughly for Algier. But I do think it's a spot where if you have a lean, or if you just even want to see what changes, like you can make a case for more Bijan, you can make a case for less Bijan in terms of workload. The Falcons have had this weird thing, and I don't know if it was by design or not. I still lean toward it was probably just coincidental, but like for a while, they've had like on and off weeks for Bijan since their bye week: 59%, 70%, 53, 75, 59, 82, 48, 72, 65, 90, 43% rushing market share. So like if you think that that's by design and it's like they're just trying to like kind of limit wear and tear on Bijan, then like this would be a Bijan on week. But again, I don't know that that's actually by design or anything. So like I think obviously if you project it just on average, where Bijan's around 65%, he looks really, really good. He's been running a lot of routes the last couple weeks as well. Not that he ever doesn't run a lot of routes, but like you've seen an uptick there where he ran 86% route participation last week. That was one of his highest marks of the season, 73% the week before that. So he's been above 70% 3 of the last 4 games. Like everything looks really good there, but obviously with this being week 17, a meaningless game, like you could say, oh no, I think it's going to be like a actual split between him and Algier again. Or you could buy into the on-off thing that they've seemingly been doing, and it's a huge Bijan week. So like obviously there's a lot of volatility in terms of like how you even project it, but clearly Bijan looks very good.
Yeah. Now you have me nervous that I have to like worry about Bijan's workload suddenly. 43% of the carries last week. That is
You
concerning.
can just buy into the on-off thing.
Yeah, if I just buy into the on-off thing, then I'll just assume he's going to get 40 fantasy points tonight. Yeah, we only have one game to play here. Bijan obviously looks great. But then if we think, I mean, there's one possible trend is the on-off. The other possible trend is they are just limited Bijan as they're out of contention at this point, and Algier continues to get more work. And that's kind of what the Sims are giving me a lot of Algier. He's just 3,800 projected for 14% flex ownership. I'm getting to 32 and 1 at captain. Are you also getting a lot of Algier?
Yeah, the ownership seems low to me just from like an eye test standpoint. Again, I haven't looked anywhere else, but it just seems a little bit low given that he is only 3,800. The downside is like you don't get much passing game work from Algier, so like you are you're still relatively touchdown dependent. Probably less so than like a Brian Robinson, but like he's priced the same way that like Brian Robinson usually is. Again, just to use an example from last night, in that like 3 to 4K range, and obviously Algier has a sizable role more often than not over the last 5 weeks, even including that game week 15 where he only got 10% of the Falcons rushing market share. He's averaging like 31% per game. He obviously has touchdown equity. They'll use him around the goal line. So if he really is only going to be 14% owned, give or take, I think that's too low.
And RG has him at 16.5. I think it's right around there everywhere. I do think like that might be realistic only because we have so much value, and we have Blake Corum. And I think a lot of people are buying into like, oh, it's a split now with Blake Corum and Kyren. So people are more excited about Blake Corum, who's only $800 more expensive. And then of course you have the Rams tight ends and Kanata Mumpfield and all this other value. So I wouldn't be that surprised if Algier does come in somewhere like, give or take 3% of where he's at here.
Yeah, so I think to your point, I was just kind of looking at the ownership at other positions. And right now there's like 53% projected to Kanata Mumpfield, which I think like it's fine. He's obviously a good value, but if that's how the field's going to play it, then I would want to play exactly the way that I have it right now, where I'm just jamming all 4 running backs. I don't really have Kanata Mumpfield. Obviously, we'll talk more about that later. But it's not like that I don't think Mumpfield's a good play or a good value. It's just that like he's less expensive than Corum and Algier, but it's still it's like in a price range where you can generally get to them relatively easily. So I would just like, if he's going to be 3 times as popular as the backup running backs, I would just play the backup running backs a lot more.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. If that is the way it shakes out, it's going to be obviously very ownership dependent. So you say you have him at 53%. RG has Mumpfield at 33%, which
seems a lot better.
Yeah,
seems not a lot better, but like
more reasonable, like more like accurate to what it should be. So we'll have to see where ownership shakes out closer to lock. But yeah, I think it is reasonable that Algier does come in at like mid-teens ownership, in which case he's going to look pretty great. On the other side, we have Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. Kyren 9,600 projected for just 13% flex ownership, 5% captain ownership. I'm getting all the Kyren Williams, 57% flex, 22% captain. And then Blake Corum also getting a fair amount there, projected for 22% flex. I'm getting to 51% in the flex, 18% at captain. The Sims really want me to play Rams running backs. Is it the same for you?
Yeah. 60. I have 61% Kyron at at flex and 20% at captain right now, and then 50% quorum at flex, 17 at captain. Like, that's obviously aggressive. I don't think that I actually want to go that far. But it's in part because there's a 0% captain ownership projection on quorum. It's going to be low, but it's not going to be zero.
No.
So yeah, I mean, if they're not going to get ownership, then yeah. And it's not that I think that they're like great plays. Like, obviously they are splitting. You're getting 35, 36, 37% of the rushing workload going to quorum on average. You're getting like 57%, give or take, going to Kyron, but it is a good offense. And outside of Puka, there's not a lot of like taking out Devontae Adams. You're taking out like your goal line wide receiver, basically. You do expect there to be more potential rushing touchdowns available for Quorum / Kyron. So that looks good. And then also, I mean, you did see them on a per route basis more involved than usual last week in the passing game. Quorum only ran 6 routes, but he was targeted twice. Kyron ran 29 routes, was targeted 6 times, 0.21 targets per route run. These are running backs that usually aren't targeted very frequently. So remains to be seen if that was just a one-off, that's what the defense was giving them, or if it was, hey, we don't have Devontae Adams and our next guys up, are tight ends / Kanata Mumfield. So we're going to just check the ball down the running backs a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good note. 6 targets last week for Kyron. Definitely not the role you expect for Kyron Williams. And they just ran more. I mean, 37 rushing attempts. That's like a regular week for Derrick Henry, of course. But for most teams, 37 rushing attempts is kind of a lot. Yeah, so both looking pretty good here. Probably can expect it to continue. Has been over the past 5 weeks a tough matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. I know that there are some metrics that look better for running backs against the Falcons defense. This one does not look as good. Any other notes on running backs at all?
No.
Yeah, it's going to be ownership dependent. So keep your eye on how ownership shifts throughout the day. Because if we get more on Algier, he's going to look less appealing. If we get more on Kyron, he'll look a little bit less appealing. But as of right now, the running backs are looking like some smash plays here. Moving on to wide receivers. Puka Nacua, 12,200 projected for 47% flex ownership, 35% captain ownership, and the Sims hate him. 31% flex. I'm getting 11% captain. I believe he was targeted 16 times last week, Adam. Are you accounting for the lack of Devontae Adams, the target share, and still hating Puka?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really move much. Like, he was targeted 0.36 targets per route run. Like, that's obviously an insane workload, but it's kind of like what he always gets anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a little surprised that I don't have more Puka. Obviously, I'm getting him. I have 7% at captain. I have 33 at flex, but I'm a little surprised not to have more just because from what I did see, I think we're actually a little bit higher in terms of fantasy point projection than other places. So I think it is like an ownership thing. Obviously, that's a ton of ownership going, especially a captain, when you do have, Bijan and Pitts and quarterbacks and running backs. So I do think, again, obviously I want Puka. I want to get the Puka. But when you take the step back and you're saying all right, it's not about necessarily being right the most often. It's how much money do you make when you are right. If 1/3 of the field is just going to slam Puka at captain and another half of the field is going to play him at flex, your payoffs are going to be better in the, Kyron went nuts game, or Pitts went nuts, or Bijan went nuts, or whatever. You're going to get paid off better in those games. So I do get it. Obviously, it's not fun. And from a, how often am I going to be happy standpoint,
right.
It's not at the top of the list.
Your sweat could be dead in the first half if you fade Puka, but also, it works out when he doesn't have big games. You're just way more likely to pay it off.
I'm a little surprised that I don't have more. If he's going to be 35% at captain, I completely get, going to other guys there. I'm a little surprised that he's not showing up more at flex. I don't know if maybe that's just a salary thing. It's hard to get Bijan at captain and Puka at flex or something. But ideally, I think that I'd want it to look more like I'm over the field at flex and don't have him at captain. Because it's so hard for Puka to not have a good game here.
Right. It's like it sets up so well with no Devontae Adams. We're expecting lots of targets.
Falcons haven't been able to guard anybody for a while now. Like, they started out the year as a good pass defense.
Yep. 6th best in terms of schedule adjusted over the past 5 weeks. I think they've been super injured on defense.
Right.
So it works out. Everything looks great for Puka. We expect the volume to be even better without Devontae Adams. I guess the concern would be like, are they going to double team Puka? Because they can just double team him and take shots with the tight ends and Kanata Mumpfield. But
yeah, it's always this is other sports too. Like, you get it in basketball. Like, there's always, in most cases, there's the trade-off where like it's hard to figure out exactly how to balance volume and efficiency when somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
And so much of it has to do with the reason it's so difficult is it has to do with each opponent is its own thing. Like, on the one hand, you would assume the Seahawks, a very good defense, very well coached defense, a lot of talent, you would have thought they'd have had a game plan to like not let Puka just annihilate them last week.
Yeah.
But they didn't. But like, the Falcons could, like you said, I mean, you see it in basketball where it's like, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a good defense, but you'll just have a team trapping a ball handler at half court every single possession. It's like, okay, there's literally nothing they can do. They're going to get torched by everybody else on the team.
Right.
But there's nothing that one individual player can do. So like, you do always run that risk. And I guess that would be like if you are just low on Puka across the board in terms of exposures, like that's what you're hoping for. It's just like they are doubling him at the line. They have somebody over the top and they're just saying like literally throw the ball anywhere else the entire game.
If you were a defensive coordinator, do you think you would, try to stop who would you rather take shots with? Like try to stop Derrick Henry and force the Ravens to throw with Tyler Huntley, or would you try to just, try to stop the passing game? If they run on us a little bit, who cares? I don't know. Just like an idea for the Packers, maybe fucking try to stop the run. along those same lines.
I would have probably not let that happen.
Yeah, that was so insane. I was hosting a party and was not watching the game. I was tracking on my phone. So maybe they were trying to stop the run and it's just Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that they weren't. I was half watching at that point, but like, I assume that they were not just like,
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on? But yeah. A previously good run defense, just getting absolutely torched by a team that has a quarterback, like a backup quarterback. I don't know. Just that was brutal. Okay. So Puka but then, I mean, if we assume that Puka is going to be double teamed, then you would think that somebody else would pop for the Rams, but it's not their pass catches, at least in the Sims. I think because we have Konata Mumpfield here at 53% ownership, that is higher than other places. But with 53 and 3 at 2,200, I'm only getting to 7% Konata Mumpfield. I think that's a bigger risk than I want to take, and I'd be curious to see where he would come in if we gave him 33% ownership. I guess we can get an idea by looking at that's still higher than the optimal rates. What are we doing with Konata Mumpfield?
So there's pros and cons on Mumpfield, even putting the ownership aside. Obviously, like 55% is a lot of ownership when you do have other cheap guys that you can go to, both on his team and just in general. You have Corum is relatively inexpensive, but also you have the tight ends. You have Ferguson, you have Allen, you have Charlie Warner as a cheap piece on Atlanta that played more last week. But even just looking at Mumpfield himself, the pros, and we talked about it prior to last week's game, that he was the clear guy that you expected to step up and get more routes with Devontae Adams out. And you did see that. It wasn't quite to the extent that I thought it could be. He ran about 50%. He had about 50% route participation last week. That was the highest of any wide receiver other than Puka. So you did see that, but you did get about 30% from Xavier Smith, and then you had like 10 to 15% from Whittington and Atwell. So the route participation was good. It could have been better. The thing that really stood out and I think still is a big question mark is overall this year, Konata Mumpfield has not earned targets, but it's really tough to earn targets when you're playing on the same team with Puka and Adams, and those guys are generally both healthy. Last week, you did have 0.3 targets per route run for Konata Mumpfield, which obviously is up a ton from where he's been overall this season. I'm not expecting 0.3 to continue necessarily, but that was clearly a good thing. You saw him targeted, I think it was 8 times by Matthew Stafford. So it's not just that he's out there running routes, but Stafford is just not even considering him throwing the ball, throwing him the ball or anything. He was actually targeted a lot. So there is that argument that you can make where it's just like, okay, no, if Matthew Stafford's going to treat Kanata Mumfield as a legitimate number 2 receiver behind the Puka, then this is like the best play on the slate at 2,200. The inverse of that is it was one game. If this game is feed the ball to Puka, run the ball, dump it off to the running backs, use the tight ends, and Kanata Mumfield is just running up and down the field and gets a couple targets, like I wouldn't want that guy at 50%. So it is just another spot where I think there's a lot of volatility there. But I do certainly like the fact that Mumfield earned 8 targets in his increased role.
Don't love the fact that he only caught 3 of them for 40 total yards. So didn't really do a ton to like make you think, okay, he's clearly earned more targets going forward. But yeah, I think that's good breakdown. I feel like it's tough to talk about right now because I think Mumfield is just extremely ownership dependent. And right now there's a band of like 20% difference in his projected ownership, depending where you look. So I guess we'll have to see where the projected ownership comes in closer to lock. Because yeah, if he comes in over 53%, I'm 100% with you. Like I'll just take the chance that he's going to go back to being. I mean, he's still even after last week, 0.13 targets per route run after getting targeted 8 times last week. So even coming up, it's still very low. I'll take my shots on that if he's going to be too highly owned. But if he comes in closer to, I mean, you do have the optimal rate at 25.5% flex, 2% captain. So like it's not nothing. He is optimal a fair amount of the time. So if he comes in a little bit lower, he becomes interesting. I think that's something we'll have to keep our eye on.
Yeah, I think he should be in like the 25 to 35% range probably.
Yeah.
Because, and again, it's just how many, there are so many cheap plays in that bucket. So it's not a matter like because of those options on this slate, it's not necessarily a matter of if Kanata Mumfield has 7-8 fantasy points at 2,200, he's optimal. Like there's a lot of slates where if you can find a $2,200 player that gets 8 fantasy points, he's in the optimal lineup. But here, if he does that, like he could be optimal, but a lot of the time, like he's going to get outscored by Algier or Quorum or any of the cheap tight ends on the slate. Xavier Smith is going to beat him a decent amount of the time. Mumfield obviously is the big favorite there, but there are enough other guys where you probably need like some semblance of an actual game from Mumfield.
Yeah, very true. Adam, I won a showdown on Saturday. Actually, the Derrick Henry game, as he was killing all my best ball lineups, he was pushing me into first place. I won $3,800 on that showdown slate. Any guesses what I used to build that showdown lineup on Saturday night?
Run the Sims.
It was Run the Sims. And if any of you want to check out Run the Sims, you can get 50% off your first payment on any NFL product at Run the Sims using promo code Neil. I didn't make a ton of adjustments. The one adjustment that I did make, and what do you say?
I said you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for that. The one adjustment that I did make was I boosted up Rasheen Ali, thinking that he was going to be like, he's in the Justice Hill role, he'll have some blow up games. Somehow he was in my winning lineup with under 3 fantasy points. So that worked out. But yeah, you don't really need to make a ton of adjustments. I've had people, there was a guy in chat recently saying, you got to stop making adjustments to Run the Sims. I just won a tournament with it. You don't need to make all the little changes that I do all the time to win with Run the Sims. So check it out. I see Adam nodding along. Adam agrees that you should check out his product. All right.
Well, I was kind of laughing in my head because like people in Discord will like ask me specifically if I tinker with the projections, and I'm like, well, no, but that's because they're mine.
Right. Yeah. Like these are my projections. Yeah. Right. All right.
Yeah, I run the stuff and I'm like, man, whoever did these is a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I need to change a lot. That's what I do. I mean, people see me do it on stream. Like, these are fucking wrong. I'm going to change everything here.
Yeah, I feel like it's a big pro. Like one thing that I always, or I guess kind of dislike, and I mean, it's not a knock on anybody, but like most places, like you don't know who's actually like working on projections.
Yeah.
Most places you don't like have a team and you don't really know who's on it. And that's fine. Like a lot of them are just, like data guys, whatever. But then in my case, it's like, I don't know if I'm happy knowing who's doing this or not.
Right. I know there's an idiot behind the scenes that Run the Sims. I'm just going to tinker with all this. No, I didn't do a ton of tinkering and I won a tournament. So yes, thank you to Adam and the Run the Sims team, and recommend it to anybody who has not already checked out Run the Sims. All right. So beyond Mumfield, Puka Nacua, Xavier Smith, 2,000 projected for 8% flex ownership. I'm only getting to 3%. So Xavier Smith also not really standing out. We're just not getting to the wide receivers. I'm getting to 1.3% Jordan Whittington, none of Tutu Atwell. Are you doing the same? Are you not going to be playing a ton of Rams receivers? Do you think things change by lock?
I'm getting the same too. Again, like I think it's just very ownership dependent. I don't think it's. I definitely don't view this as like one of those spots that you get sometimes where it's just like, wow, if the field's going to do this, like I have a completely different take. Like I understand why you would play them. Xavier Smith ran the third most routes amongst wide receivers last week. I do think there is some volatility there. Like you could get, more Whittington or more Atwell or whatever. But reasonable to expect him to be out there, 30, 35% of the time again. One other thing too, that I kind of just thought about going back to the quarterback conversation, just the fact that everything does go hand in hand, it does make more sense now too, that I wasn't getting much Stafford. If I'm not getting much Mumfield, I'm below the field on Puka. I'm not getting much Smith. Like the teams I'm playing right now collectively just seem to be leaning into this, like more run heavy, get to the running backs on both sides type build, which is fine. But also, like, if you don't, it is kind of extreme, and you can, I'm sure, find plenty of plus CV lineups that have more Puka or have more Mumfield or whatever.
Right. Yeah, you don't need to go to this extreme. But as of right now, in the portfolio is not getting to a ton of Rams receivers. As Adam said, Xavier Smith, if you want to play him, did run 29% of routes. He was third of the wide receivers, but I mean, just 29%, only saw 2 targets. So still a relatively thin play. I would say like better than a classic backup tight end play where it's like you're hoping for one target in the game, like that. Slightly better usage than that last week for Smith, but you're not really expecting him to run like 50% of the routes like you are with Mumfield. Jordan Whittington had 1 target on just 4 routes run last week, 7.8% route participation. I got to a tiny bit of Whittington, and then I didn't get to any Tutu Atwell. He was in last week. He ran 7 routes, was not targeted. But I guess he's 3,000 more expensive than the others. On the other side, I find the Falcons pretty fascinating. So Drake London, 9,800 projected for 30% flex ownership, 8% captain ownership. I'm getting to 31% flex, 9% captain. So just slightly over the field on Drake London. We saw Drake London return last week after a long absence. So there is a little bit of input question here. Like what are you doing with Drake London? How are you trading Drake London this week and how much are you getting?
Yeah, so he ran like 83% route participation last week, which was good to see. That's, down a little bit from when he's, fully healthy and everything, but like he wasn't super limited or anything like that. The other thing that really stood out to me is because I think it's easier to kind of guess how much somebody's going to be on the field coming back from injury generally. I think that's easier than figuring out exactly how effective they're going to be or productive they're going to be. He was targeted like 0.32 targets per route run. So he was earning targets from Cousins. Also, the Falcons are really weird, and this is going to speak to Kyle Pitts as well. The Falcons are kind of a pain in the ass, not kind of. The Falcons are a pain in the ass to like really project to, because it's not as simple as looking at Drake London on-off splits necessarily, because like every game that Drake London missed has coincided with being the only games that Kirk Cousins has played prior to last week. So it was good to see like Drake London not only earning targets, meaning that he physically was like getting open, but also Kirk Cousins was throwing him the ball. So that was good to see. So I am bullish on London. I do like the price tag here. I am getting pretty close to the field, 33% flex, 10% captain. I like the price tag. I think he looks good. I do mostly like what we saw last week in terms of him being on the field and him also earning targets.
Yeah, I think same page. I like London a bit, and I think this 8% ownership is slightly higher than I've seen on London a captain elsewhere. I think I would get even more if he comes in a little bit lower. So kind of again, everything's ownership dependent, but I'm already getting slightly above the field. Sounds like you were also. I think London like a fairly strong play. You can kind of expect him to get back to the alpha wide receiver role that he had. It is a good point. I had not considered that was with Michael Penix when like before the injury. There was a little while where he was looking like a the best second round pick in best ball. Like he was looking like an absolute smash for a while. But now it is a quarterback change. So maybe not quite as bullish as it would be with Penix, But yeah, promising to see the 8 targets in his return, even on just 69% route participation. Should, you would think, negatively affect the other receivers on the Falcons. But Darnell Mooney projected for just 20% flex ownership, none at captain at 4,000. I'm getting a 22% flex, 8% at captain. Just 2 targets last week for Darnell Mooney. But do we think he still has the big play upside? How much are you getting to of Mooney?
Yeah, I have 20% at flex. I have 5 at captain, which again probably is just because he's projected for actual 0, and it'll be like 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't have any confidence in Mooney. Like, he's been a non-factor this year. One thing that I think is bullish isn't the right word. It's more like, I guess, not bad. He didn't benefit from London being out, so it's possible that he is slightly better with London in, just from a teams have to pay attention to Drake London standpoint. Like that first game that we had London out, you saw people adjust really heavily to jamming in Darnell Mooney and getting to Kyle Pitts. And then we pretty quickly got the question answered that Kyle Pitts is going to get a big increase without Drake London, and Darnell Mooney is just going to be completely fucking useless. So the two kind of choices here, he's not worse with Drake London back. He's either equally as bad as he has been, or he is slightly less bad. So there is that, working in his favor, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, he was good last year with London. Now we did learn they came in with like a broken collarbone or something. I forget what it was, but he was like pretty banged up coming into the year. Maybe that's still affecting him, and he's just not going to get back to what he was last year. But I guess we can hope that he gets back to being the better player that he was last year with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And the ownership is low enough that I think Mooney is a fairly strong play at 4,000. Chris Blair, I had not considered. He's 200, project for 4% ownership. I'm getting to 12%. He ran 2 routes last week. Didn't see a target. So is this just a price thing?
Yeah, I think it's just a price thing. Also, we need him to actually be elevated from the practice squad. I haven't seen that officially. I just threw him in because I know that he was last week, but I actually don't even know if he has elevations left. So yeah, I'm sure it's just a price thing. He ran like 6% of routes last week. I don't think, like, you could X him out of your player pool and feel perfectly fine about it, I think.
Yeah. RG has him in also, for what it's worth. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see if he gets called up. David Sills, I got to 0.7%. Doesn't look like he has a great role, but 1 target on 31%. I mean, that's not nothing, I guess. I got to a little bit of David Sills, none of Dylan Drummond. Do you have any major interest in any of the other wide receivers on the Falcons?
So I do think with David Sills, you actually can... There's some input volatility here. Last week, he with London back, there was a really big drop in route participation. He had run, in the weeks that London was out, 68, 89, 97, 96% route participation. And then last week he dropped to 36%. You had Drake London in the slot on like 44% of his routes, and that kicked, David Sills to the bench quite a bit. But also you had Charlie Warner run 47% route participation last week, 33% the week before that. But previously you're generally looking at like 20% or so for Charlie Warner. So if this week the Falcons go back to less 2 tight end, then Sills probably does get back to like 60% route participation. In the games previously where London was in, like weeks 9, 10, 11, Sills was at 68, 52, and 68% route participation. So there's no guarantee that they go the Charlie Warner route again, and you could get back to like 60, 65% Sills. Now, that being said, he's still not somebody that's going to be targeted very heavily. He's obviously behind London and Pitts in the pecking order. Maybe Mooney also, who knows? He's behind Robinson in terms of targets too. So it's not like there's a case for Sills where it's like, oh, wow, he's super exciting if this works out. But you could make the case of like, well, he is unowned. Maybe he's on the field for 2/3 of their dropbacks. If you wanted to go that route.
Yeah. Am I muted? Let me see. No, in this 3-game sample size that you're referencing, where he was running a lot of routes with Drake London there, 3 total targets across those 3 games on 59% route participation. So yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, you're hoping that he gets back to this role. So it's a thin play, which is why I'm only getting to 1%, but he is a viable play in large field tournaments at 2,800.
The other problem you run into again is like just that bucket of plays is so big.
Yeah.
And he's 2,800. So you're like, okay, well, what if they do something different than they did last week? And then what if they do something different than last week? And also David Sills produces at a level he hasn't produced that all season long. And then every other player around him also fails. Like now he's a winning play.
It feels a little bit like a long shot. Anything else at wide receiver?
So one thing I did kind of just want to mention, both of these teams, if you look at the schedule adjusted fantasy points chart, both of these teams have just, given up a ton of production to wide receivers the last 5 weeks. They've both actually been good against slot receivers and then just gotten torched on the outside. Puka's outside route participation did actually increase slightly last week with Adams out. Mumfield is running almost exclusively on the outside. For the Falcons, Mooney obviously is on the outside a lot. I mentioned it, but London was in the slot 44% of the time. Not that you should be looking at this and saying like, oh, I'm not going to play Drake London because the Rams are good against slot receivers. Like, I don't give a shit. But he did run a lot of slot routes last week, whereas, Mooney is pretty much always outside.
Kyle Pitts, 38% slot route participation. So we cannot play Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
And he cannot do well for best ball teams.
I never really know. I feel like I tend to like ignore the tight end slot.
I do too. Yeah.
Because like they're just built differently than wide receivers. Like it's a completely different matchup.
Yeah. I only bring it up because I really want Kyle Pitts to fail tonight for best ball purposes.
Smokowski said Sills had 10 targets a couple weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that was the game where he also had like a 60-yard touchdown and he literally turned his hands the wrong direction. Like he had never caught a football before.
He was targeted 10 times. So I totally missed that. That is wild. Was anybody else out for that game?
I don't remember. I didn't realize he had 10 targets. I do specifically remember the game where he was targeted a lot, but also like he was just wide open deep and like the throw was coming in like low, and instead of like turning his hands like this, he tried to like catch the top of the it was Weird. Just like bizarre to watch. It was like he didn't know how his hands were supposed to work.
Interesting. I did not see that one. I did watch some of them earlier in the year because there were a few showdown sites where I was like, oh, I like this David Sills guy. Like he's running a lot of routes, not getting any ownership. Thought he was going to, be targeted some if you run 60% of the routes, and that just didn't happen. But yeah, that's wild. Obviously not happening with Drake London back. We're not expecting 10 targets for David Sills. All right. Tight ends. Tight ends are kind of interesting on this slate. Colby Parkinson, 4,400, projected for 51% flex, 3% captain. I'm only getting to 10%. Now, I see why I'm getting so much of the running backs because the passing games are just projected for so much ownership. Ferguson, 3,400, projected for 17-1. I'm getting to 9. Davis Allen, projected for 20. I'm getting to 7. So underweight on all three of the Rams receivers. How we feeling about that?
So Colby Parkinson is just more of the same, where like I think he actually probably ends up being 30 to 35% owned, which is where his optimal rate is. And if that's the case, then I'll probably have like 30 to 35%. But if he's actually going to be 55%, and then on top of that, like you get the combinatorial effect also, where if everybody's playing a ton of Puka, which clearly they're going to, and a lot of Stafford, but then also playing like a ton of Mumfield and a ton of Parkinson, those players are all going to like overlap too in lineups, and so you just end up like duping a lot as well. But I do think that ownership probably comes down, in which case my exposure to him go up. He wasn't targeted a lot last week, but in general this year he's been targeted a lot. I certainly don't think that Devontae Adams being out is like a negative for Parkinson. The only thing that I guess you could argue is they once again went with the 3 tight end personnel a lot, which puts Terrence Ferguson on the field more. And so like maybe you do see what would have been Colby Parkinson targets turning into Terrence Ferguson targets to some extent. But I think you can actually almost look at this as a potential case if you wanted to make it against Mumfield, where you had Mumfield get all these targets last week, but Parkinson didn't get any. And on average, Parkinson's going to get a lot of targets. So like that is one obvious spot where you could just say, okay, well, maybe Mumfield goes back to getting like 2 targets this week, and it's Parkinson getting any targets in addition to Ferguson and the running backs and Puka. So overall, the target share for Parkinson this year has been very good. Last week in particular, it sucked, but he should be on the field a lot. And does probably get a little bit more touchdown equity without Adams as well.
It's funny that last week, like, yeah, his target share was just 8.2%. He still saw 4 targets. So, like, that's still like for a lot of tight ends, like, yeah, I'll take 4 targets for my tight end. He's only like 4,400. Matthew Stafford throwing the ball. Obviously a fine play, but we're going to have to pay attention to ownership because as of right now, we just have 54% total ownership going to Parkinson. So that's less appealing.
Yeah, he ran the second most routes on the team behind Puka.
Yeah. Ferguson, Allen, do we have any big takes? I mean, Ferguson last week, also 4 targets. I didn't realize that. 4 targets on 69% route participation for Ferguson last week. Allen 5 on 41% route participation. Is Ferguson the guy we want to play, you think? Or are we just not getting to the tight ends?
So I'm not getting to Ferguson, but I think that like he's fine. I will say with Ferguson, and we talked about this last week and got it completely right in terms of like what happened. So the Rams have been using like 13 personnel a lot recently. Colby Parkinson is going to run a lot of routes no matter what.
Yep.
Davis Allen is going to run like a medium amount of routes no matter what. You got 21 routes from Davis Allen last week. Terrence Ferguson is either going to be neck and neck with Parkinson for the most routes at tight end, or he's going to be third, depending on like what personnel they go with. And the assumption I think at this point is that, especially with Adams out, you're just going to see a lot of 3 tight ends and then like Puka outside. And so Ferguson ran the 3rd most routes on the team last week. It was Puka at 44, Parkinson at 36, Ferguson at 35. Kyron was at 29. Mumfield was at 25. So, and Ferguson was only targeted the same as Parkinson, 0.11 targets per route run. So you can get more targets potentially for Ferguson. I did just want to point out that volatility where most likely I think Ferguson is out there running a lot of routes just like last week. But he is somebody where he is susceptible to what personnel groupings they go with, because if they do, for whatever reason, use more 1 tight end or 2 tight end, Ferguson disappears because that is Parkinson and Allen.
Yeah. Spellcock says, look at Fergie's ADOT though.
Yeah.
What is the ADOT for Ferguson last week? It was 13.3 last week. Interesting. I do kind of like to play. Like, I think they probably continue to run more Ferguson. Like, do we have any reason to think they won't continue to do what they did last week?
No, because they were doing it before last week too.
Yeah. I mean, 71% in week 15. Yeah. Ferguson does kind of stands out to me as a fairly strong play that I had missed earlier. So I'm going to have to add him to my write-up.
He's been a high ADOT guy for the year. For the season, 18.3 ADOT for Ferguson. Related, 42.9% catch rate.
Yeah.
Lowest on the...
Jeez, yeah. Not they keep talking about him. Like the coach speak has been very positive for Ferguson basically all year. Like, oh yeah, we need to get him more involved. Yeah, it just doesn't like he's 3,400, I guess. So that's why he doesn't project extremely well point per dollar. That's why he doesn't project that well point per dollar, not like super contrarian, but kind of contrarian. I think I like it I think I like him as a play.
The upside is there. He's just somebody that like, even if he's on the field. So I think he's different from Parkinson in that, like, you look at Parkinson's, 0.11 targets per route run last week. I think that is an anomaly. Like, he's going to get targeted more often most of the time. Ferguson is somebody that like he's somebody that you expect to be that relatively low target per route run, low catch rate guy. But when he does catch it, it's probably a big play. He's averaging 19.7 yards per reception this year. He's caught 9 of 21 passes thrown to him.
Yeah.
But 2 of those 9 were also touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. It seems like a reasonably strong play. 21 targets on the year in 12 games. So not targeted a ton. But again, we have seen kind of a positive trend the past couple of weeks, around 70% route participation with no Devontae Adams. Targeted a lot last week. I think it's a good gamble.
Yeah, like Parkinson and Allen are your guys that they're your more like typical tight ends that are running, like sub. Davis Allen's ADOT is 4.2 yards. Colby Parkinson's is 4.3. They're catching 75% of the passes thrown to them. Parkinson, obviously is on the field more and getting targeted more. But then Ferguson is just like a different, he's a big play guy that isn't going to get targeted that frequently. He's not going to catch that many passes or catch that many of his targets. But when he does, it's just chunk plays.
Yeah. All right. On the other side, Kyle Pitts, 30 targets over the past 3 weeks. Saw 9 targets last week in Drake London's return, which I kind of wondered how much Drake London was going to affect Kyle Pitts, just given how good he's been. And he kind of maintained the same kind of target share. 16% projected flex ownership, 2% captain ownership going to Kyle Pitts. I'm getting a 23-3. So over the field there, those ownership numbers seem so low. What are you doing with Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought where I could see it go either way because Pitts has been so good lately. People are going to be happy to click on him, but the more you're clicking on Kyle Pitts, the less you can click on London and Puka and Stafford and everybody else. So the ownership I think kind of has to stay somewhat in check. And Pitts I think is very difficult to project confidently because it's kind of, is him playing well and being targeted a lot a bigger function of London missing time or Kirk Cousins being the quarterback? And we don't have, other than last week where Pitts was still targeted a ton and so was London, which is a very good sign. It would be different like if London were targeted, 0.15 targets per route run and Pitts is at 0.33, then you're still saying, okay, well, over a larger sample, London's going to come up and Pitts is going to come down. It's a very good sign that like they were both north of 0.3 targets per route run. Cousins was just feeding both of them. It does point towards an increased likelihood that Cousins is kind of the reason for this Pitts breakout more than London being out. But you do have, again, it's one game. And if you look at targets per route run this season when London is in versus out, there's a substantial drop off for Pitts. But again, that is also muddied by the quarterback change. So I think Pitts is still good. And Cousins is going to look for Pitts a lot. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. And, Mooney is just kind of going to be the third guy. But there is some chance that sooner than later, London kills off Pitts production, in the past.
It like at this point, it just seems like you can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle kind of thing, where it's like he's been too good to just not earn a lot of targets week over week. Who knows? Could go away, but
and again, likely. Different quarterback play. And Cousins has done, he's carried tight ends in the past. Like
he didn't carry Kyle Pitts last year, I can tell you that.
But like Washington always had good tight ends. Minnesota, was he there with Hawkinson? He was there with Hawkinson, right?
Yep, and I think they did well together. Yeah, Kyle Pitts looking a bit under-owned, a little bit low-owned here. Then you've got Tegan Kitoriano. I'm not getting to any. You playing any Kitoriano?
No, I'm getting Charlie Warner.
Sorry, I missed the Charlie Warner. 1,200 project for 1%. I'm getting to 13.
Yeah, Charlie Warner is the other half of that David Sills conversation where if the Falcons go with a lot of two tight end like they did last week and the week before, then Warner is going to be on the field a lot. He's not going to be like highly targeted or anything like that, but he's going to be on the field running routes more than he has on average this year, which kind of naturally means that he's underpriced. But you could also just go back to where the Falcons are using 3 wide receivers more and Warner is not running as many routes. If he's going to be 1% owned, then I would take some shots at him and just hope that you get more of what you got last week in terms of route participation. But, at the same time, you can't be super confident that's going to happen.
Is it the same kind of thing where, if you were using an optimizer, would you try to negative boost David Sills if you have Charlie Warner lineup, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, with the caveat that it's a 1-game slate and obviously the optimal lineup could be David Sills catches the 1 target for a touchdown that he gets, and Warner catches 2 targets and one of them is a touchdown. It can obviously still work out, but I do think I do think route participation between Sills and Warner is negatively correlated.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, on that conversation, I think it's more fluid with the Falcons because we haven't seen them do it as consistently as we've seen the Rams use their 3 tight ends. But route participation for the Rams, I think, is negatively correlated between some combination of Atwell, Whittington, Smith, and then Terrence Ferguson. If Terrence Ferguson loses routes, it's more routes for whoever wins out of that group. Yeah.
Spellcast says, imagine trying to use toothpaste from a bottle. Toothpaste from a tube is the saying. Yes, that is a good point. My brain is fried after a weekend of hosting parties and watching football and all the other stuff. Just exhausted. Defenses and kickers. Let's see how much we get into of the defenses and kickers. a lot of Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker, projected for 30% ownership. I'm getting to 34% total ownership with about 1% at captain. Zane Gonzalez on the other side projected for 25%. I'm getting to 14%, so underweight there. Falcons defense projected for 7% flex, none at captain. I'm getting 15% in flex. And then Rams defense 5,200 projected for 10% flex ownership. I'm getting to 13 and then another one at captain. Is this along the lines of what you're getting also?
Yeah, mostly in line with the field on all 4 pieces there, which is perfectly fine with me. Kickers, obviously, like I would prefer the Rams, but there's so much volatility in kicking that I don't feel the need to have like a huge stand versus the field one way or the other. Defense is kind of the same thing. Like you do have 2 statue quarterbacks that potentially can get sacked a lot. Cousins, of course, the one that you expect. If one of them, just has a really shitty game, it's a lot more likely to be Cousins than Stafford. But yeah, no real stands for me on kickers or defenses.
All right. Well, we are going to get out of here. There is no Thursday football this week. There is no Monday football this week. So I guess we'll discuss if we're doing these shows for the playoffs or what's going on. I know I'll be continuing to do some showdown stuff. I'll discuss with Adam whether we're going to, but none this week because there's no Thursday, no Monday. What do you have coming up that people can look out for?
Nothing.
No NBA stuff coming up.
Probably gonna start more consistently doing NBA like around the new year. It's been a pain in the ass to get. Like with football like every day for the last week, it's been a huge pain in the ass to work on NBA.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that would be tough. So yeah, look out. Make sure you are subscribed to Run the Sims Live if you want to catch some of Adam's NBA stuff when it does come back. Yeah, I'll be doing, I don't know if I'll be doing a show this week with Mathology. I'll talk with him about that. Obviously, like I said, no Thursday football this week, so no Thursday show. But keep your eye out for whatever is coming on this channel. Good luck to everybody in your sweats tonight. Good luck to Adam. Not really, because I need Cal Pitts to fail. So I hope you move backwards.
Anyway, the only thing I'm rooting for is just like this game to not have fantasy points.
Here's what I'll say. I hope that it is Bijan Robinson who does well for me more so than Puka Nacua for your sake.
Yeah,
there you go. I'll give you that. Painful. Yeah. All right. We're going to get out of here. Good luck to everybody tonight. I will be back before lock to break down everything once again. After inactives come out, I'll build my lineups on the stream. Make sure you check out Run the Sims. Promo code Neil for 50% off your first payment on anything NFL. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.